Greetings, Masters. I am Metatron, Angel of Light, and I welcome you in a vector of unconditional love. Dear ones, there are certain reincarnational sojourns that carry more light, carry more opportunity, and this is one that offers a quantum leap in your growth of consciousness. In the new energy, you may expand your perceptions, your beliefs, and indeed your priorities. It is a time of greater light, and thus lessening shadow. It is time to embrace the challenge, to embrace the opportunity and release limiting belief, to disregard the programming of fairy tales and childish dogma. Ever is there the individual choice, and Masters, your rate of learning depends entirely upon you. Dear human angels, in this session, we devote our energies to address a topic that is very important for humanity at this time. But as we share our truth, it is for you as sovereign beings to accept these words if they resonate with you, or to reject them if they do not. For your discernment is ever required for reception of any such message from any source, including this one, for you are masters in the making. Negativity, energy of destruction versus energy of creation. We will speak on the topic of negativity, but we should first add that a better, more accurate description of the energies within duality that you term as positive and negative are creative and destructive. Love is the ultimate creative force. Hate and fear are the ultimate destructive forces. In terms of the auric field, hate and fear are the primary disruptive forces that create auric imbalance and energetic toxicity. When your auric field is open, the destructive vibration of negative can mal-affect you in myriad ways. At its base, the core vibration of hate is fear, but the nuances, causes, and mechanisms of hatred are not always as apparent to you. And so in this discourse, we will speak on the far-reaching effects of hatred. We would like to define our use of the word hate to mean a deep hardening of the heart in which one stoically and adamantly refuses to see any light, any divinity in the other, and becomes obsessed with deep destructive emotions. Hate is earmarked by dwelling upon hateful feelings toward the other, with no consideration of forgiveness or rectification. Hatred is widespread in duality. Your Bible speaks of the Christos, Jeshua ben Joseph, as having been tortured and crucified, and yet asking for those that committed the execution to be forgiven, for they know not what they do. Your religious texts also speak of an eye for an eye. There is a saying most of you are familiar with that speaks of forgiven but not forgotten. So there is a widespread gamut of approaches to perceived injustice, some that would indicate that retribution is befitting vindication. Masters, by the law of grace, you are more able to receive merciful rectification for transgressions that are committed in ignorance than for actions you know to be harmful. Did not Jeshua ben Joseph say, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do"? And so, sin, in your biblical terms, is the commission of an act you know to be wrong. Your Edgar Cayce beautifully defined sin as knowledge not utilized. We ask you to add to your knowledge the fact that hatred is wrong in any circumstance, and act accordingly. So what we tell you is that hatred is mutually destructive, but even more devastating to the one that hates than to the one that is hated. Although in most situations, both parties of an egregious hatred hostility spiral downward to become equal generators and thus victims of hate. Dear ones, it is an absolute truth that there is no human who hates, but that hatred is reflected outward and made physical, and in kind. There is no human who loves, but that love is projected outward and made physical. The energy involved in the emotion of hate is much more destructive and far-reaching than many of you realize. Its effects are akin to a growing malignancy, because hate is in fact quite toxic to the body, mind, and spirit. Hate and fear are the same resonance, and both, if focally dwelt upon, will absolutely weaken the body, distort the mind, and open your field to disease. So in this channel, we are emphasizing the issue of negativity because it is essential that you be clear that by dwelling upon destructive forces, you draw more negativity to you. And as such, not only months and years can be tainted, entire lifetimes can be unnecessarily wasted. No soul ever incarnates with a plan to include hatred. Yet hatred will draw you to those whom you hate in order to resolve the conflict. For hatred will follow you year by year, lifetime after lifetime, until you eventually learn that it is hate itself that is the enemy. Laws and balance. There are laws pertaining to growth and duality. The law of attraction and law of belief are spawned and shaped by the law of cause and effect. Cause and effect is an absolute truth of duality. It is not malleable, forgiven only in grace, and oft experienced in what you may term as the school of hard knocks, but is quite unbending whether in the hidden corridors of mind or in the external visible planes of 3D. Thoughts are things, and where you dwell in thought, you will soon experience, period. You will draw to yourself that which you fear, and that which you hate. Hatred will attach you to those whom you hate with absolute certainty, until the hatred eventually evolves into love. The one you hate in the present will be your parent, child, or sibling in the next sojourn. Those who act unjustly to another often come back to balance the soul. Karma is not a debt, rather the seeking of balance, a righting of the self. Your civil rights movement in the United States contained many former slave owners. Your Native American reservations contain many reincarnated gold miners. That is why so many casinos are on native land. Gold miners are attempting to bring back the gold they took away, and to experience the situation their greed created, which cannot be restored. And although this may surprise some of you, many Germanic people have reincarnated into Israel in post-World War II, all to seek balance. You must understand that no soul is ever without retribution for misactions in the purposed illusion and dramatic lessening of the earth. No soul is eternally condemned. No soul is left behind, no matter how heinous the act. Rectification is available to every soul. Such is the grace that you term God. All of you will at one juncture or another make grave misactions in your sojourns, and the path allows for all to right what was wrong in the manner that allows them to understand the error. When deep malice and despicable acts of hatred are involved, the facing, analytical understanding, and balancing process for rectification is much more complex. We tell you again, all injustice, all that you term sin, is against the self in higher aspect. Hatred, greed, injustice, every whit will be met and faced, not as punishment, but in soul balance. Some in realization and law of grace, others in actualization, ever chosen by the self. But no soul is beyond forgiveness, just as each soul must forgive those that trespass against them. When you hate those that offend, you become ingrained with the very energy that attacked. All in duality will experience both the creative, benevolent force of the positive aspect and the destructive force of negativity. How you react in negative situations will determine, to no small degree, how you move forward. A soul does not achieve wisdom and mastery by chance. Rather, is mastery achieved by continued discipline and effort in right thinking followed by right action. Zealotry, self-aggrandizement, and self-righteousness are imbalances that distort one's thinking and open one to the down spiral of hatred in the disguise of false justification. Persons who hate will always believe themselves to be fully justified and do not consider themselves as erroneous in that feeling. The hatred is hidden behind a skewed sense of misaligned reasoning of right. It is an interesting truth that the self-righteous find it easier to forgive someone for being wrong than to forgive someone who is right. A human never hates anything or anyone that he or she believes to be worthy or meritorious. One who hates thinks they are being right, therefore, in their reaction of hatred, but the hatred itself forms a very strong attachment to the hater. Hatred becomes a living negative thought form that stakes an energetic claim to you and will follow you, taking influential possession of your thoughts if allowed to amplify and attach unchecked. It will be a destructive, malicious force which you helped create. It will stay until you eventually learn that the hatred vibration itself is the enemy, is the real culprit and destroyer. Two types of anger. When one is unjustifiably attacked, violated, insulted, or demeaned, the natural response is to react in anger. But it is the manner and depth of the anger reaction that determines the effect. Before we go further, we will also add the caveat that hate is different from anger. This differentiation will be discussed herewith. So be aware that there is a very important difference between anger and hate. Anger is not necessarily imbued with hatred. Yet in your language, there is not a word that differentiates a natural response that is a spontaneous reaction to a disagreement that is more conciliatory from one that is a counterattack. What we tell you is that there are two vibrational forms of that you term as anger. One can be creative and positive, and one can be negative and spiral downward into a prolonged, deep negativity. The latter is ever the wrong path, but it too will eventually lead home, but only after a futile, often brutal lesson in experiencing the energy of hatred. In time, all hate will evolve into love. Now, the nuances are complex. Often, one can go too far in the other extreme in fear of confrontation, a timid fear of anything considered negative. Many in spiritual paths erroneously believe that anger is always negative, and they suppress it, sweep it under the rug. In truth, anger can be a natural reaction to what is considered to be inappropriate or violating of one's integrity. Anger expressed appropriately can in fact be the better response, even a therapeutic one when managed wisely under certain circumstances. But it must be expressed in a vibration that allows for rectification, as opposed to a nasty one-upmanship counterattack, and that is an essential key. Anger, when expressed in a natural reiteration, can be ultimately positive. It can be an honest expression of communication that serves to better identify the appropriate boundaries of interaction and relationships. It can open the door to rectification that otherwise may build and fester if left unexpressed. It allows the opportunity for both sides to reconsider their actions. Positive anger can be a teacher in that it may serve to allow the offender to learn and thus grow, and in so doing, provides growth to both sides of any conflict. But we re-emphasize that it is the approach, the expressive mannerism that differentiates an anger response from being either creative or destructive, positive or negative in your terms. Indeed, it can be either, so discretion and important choices are involved. We speak herein in generalized terms, for the situation of disagreements and conflict may not always be clearly defined or simplistic. In conflicts that spiral into mutual hate, there are always incorrect actions on both sides. Neither is blameless. Both sides have dug a pit of entrapment, one that will only end when the lesson of hatred is learned. What we ask you to take from this is the vibration of your individual reactions. Do you understand? Nuances of honest expression. All of you will, in the duality planes, feel the rise of the full array of emotions. The wise learn to take a moment and consider the situation, rather than responding without consideration. When you own the feeling and understand the situation, you are more capable of reacting in an honest and considered way. To first consider the feeling of initial anger before reacting is not the same as suppressing it. If you understand these differences in advance of any potential conflict, you are more capable of reacting in a positive manner that is spontaneous and natural without surrendering your truth. Spiritual people tend to avoid areas of disagreement and will at times so fear any confrontation that they deny their emotional feelings. Fear is as destructive as hatred. It is a mistake to automatically fear natural reactions underneath a false facade by glossing over feelings with what may be thought of as positive thoughts. This can be a grave error if it leads to self-denial. It is just as wrong to apologize when someone steps on your foot as it is to step on the foot of another. That is because your true feelings can only be dealt with when confronted and honestly expressed. A suppressed anger will mentally fester and grow, and will eventually surface, usually with a harder edge in an overreaction, and often burst out in an inappropriate way and less fitting time. Teachings of positive mental attitude and religious dogmas that instruct one to rise above your emotions can be somewhat misleading and erroneously misapplied when emotions are inhibited or blocked. It is quite impossible to rise above a feeling that is occluded, thus unseen and unconsidered. Spontaneous emotions are a mirror of experience and should not be shut off. To do so can lead to timidity and self-condemnation, as the implication is that there is an innate negativity of original sin in human emotional nature. The idea that spiritual people can only hold blissful concepts of a detached nirvana can lead to an ungrounded airy-fairy disconnection that separates them from 3D. Your lessons in life occur in duality. Emotions should be allowed to flow. Keep in mind that experiencing your natural emotions as such is not the same as accepting them as statements of fact about your own progression experience. Allowing and reviewing the flow of natural emotions is not the same as overtly expressing every feeling. Inhibiting anger only bottles it up inside you. Normal irritations, when systematically repressed, will absolutely eventually erupt. And when this sudden release bursts out, you are more likely to be at the mercy of an uncontrolled, even violent venting. The fear of your emotions can be more detrimental than their expression. Remember that the vibration of fear is as detrimental as hate. The importance of being grounded. The rose-colored glasses approach will inevitably lead to an imbalance. The soul is a fountain of creativity that energetically reveals its attributes in life precisely through the evolution of emotions. When you develop a trust of your feelings, you are on a path that is better able to allow you to discover spiritual states of mystical understanding, tranquility, and peacefulness. Every human, each of you are where you are by the law of being. The thoughts which you build into your character have brought you to the present point in your evolution. Emotional expression is the mirror that allows you to self-review and adjust. This is just as true of those who feel out of harmony with their surroundings as of those who are contented with them. Denial of emotion leads to issues. Denial of emotions shadow the mirror. Images that are falsely projected create contradictions in the self. You become a book that is partly truth and partly fiction. Honesty, therefore, is a tool of refining character. Remember, you draw to self what you fear as much as what you hate. Dealt with honestly, expressed anger can be the setup for the clearing of conflicts, and in this way are positive therapeutic conduits for resolution. If you express and do not bury such emotions, they can lead you beyond conflict and into consolatory feelings, carrying you from anger into greater understanding and clarity. But understand, there are a lot of variables as to the outcome. Much will depend on attitude and behavior from both sides. If one shoots from the hip in a knee-jerk overreaction and immediately spews poisonous counterattacks, the conflict is exacerbated and can spiral downward into rage and hate. When your reactions lead to negativity, then your blind, unconsidered actions betray you, because such methods are unworthy of higher intent. So unworthy and so out of line with higher purpose that the methods themselves leads to a negative attitude that often goes unrecognized because it is hidden by being felt as justified. What you are missing is that negativity shifts you, and when it spirals downward into hate or terror, you can become dominated by a chain of toxic thoughts. The choice of focus. Remember, what you concentrate upon, you draw to yourself. What you dwell upon, you manifest into reality. And we emphasize this point, for it is a great truth that few choose to live by. When you focus on deep negativity, deep fear, deep hatred, your vibration immediately changes and your auric field will shatter like broken glass. When you dwell on negativity, toxic enzymes are fed into your bloodstream. These are poisons that are degenerative to the nervous system, immune system, vital organs, and glandular systems of your body. These result in mental and emotional imbalances that fuel further anger and an acceleration of negative experience by impairing one's judgment. Left unchecked, your energy will become quite repulsive to others, such that former friends will no longer choose to be in your presence. In your duality realm, there are polarities, there are opposites. There is what you term good and evil, negative and positive, light and dark. In your society, you have organizations to deal with those individuals and groups that break the rules of society, be these criminals, terrorists, or so-called rogue nations. It is an interesting study to observe those in your society that are the agencies and authorities who are empowered to confront negativity. Such empowered agencies, organizations, authorities, and persons in dealing with negativity are often themselves vulnerable to becoming that which they oppose. A policeman or a military warrior may themselves become violent or negative because of their exposure to negativity by dwelling upon anger or fear, which in itself opens their field to such attachment. Those that are victims of crime may become so focused on anger and revenge that they become filled with hate. And though there may be a grave, egregious injustice imposed upon them, the very dwelling on anger can poison their lives. Nelson Mandela spent almost 3 decades in a prison, in a harsh, isolated environment that could have easily invoked bitter hatred. And we tell you that most of your penal systems are focused on punishment and are incubators of hatred and rage, not of reformation. Yet Mandela chose love over hatred, and in doing so he changed a nation, and indeed became a humble hero and exemplary leader of humanity. Had he turned bitter and full of hatred, the change would not have occurred in the astonishing manner of love. He did not relent. He did not lose sight of his purpose. He did not apologize for demanding equality, and he did not succumb to hate. There have been many leaders fronting justifiable causes, which turn into vengeance, violence, and hate. And the hate consumes them, and masters, little is truly gained, and the wars continue. Wars cannot be stopped through hate, only through consciously loving peace. This is true on the micro as well as the macro. You will learn that strength is an essential aspect of love, but there are fine lines of demarcation that must be wisely treaded. You will devote entire lifetimes to understanding power, and other lifetimes dedicated to understanding nurturing and love. And in mastery, you must combine the knowledge and wisdom of both. You will choose these sojourns. You will script the challenges, the setups, and you must face them to transcend them. You must earn mastery. Being right and being just. Being right is not the same as being just. Being right at any price can cost you far more than you realize. Even what may begin as a simple disagreement, a rather mundane conflict, can regress into deepening anger that becomes so toxic that it takes over the minds and activities of those passionately involved. The anger becomes exacerbated. Both sides may feel they have a right to be upset, and fight so hard to be vindicated that the negativity permeates them and snowballs, changing their core vibration and attracting more and more negativity, eventually leading to destructivity of their lives. These are common examples, and all of you to some degree have experienced this process. We are not saying that one should run from confrontation. To be clear, we are not saying to hide your head in the sand or to apologize when someone steps on your foot. Rather, we are saying one of the important lessons of duality is learning how to deal with negativity without becoming negative. It is a complex challenge and a cautionary tale that all of you will have to master. Sometimes the choices are not black and white, but in subtle tones of gray. As you advance on the path of mastery, there may not be a concise, easy fork in the road. The choices may not be of a simple decision between right and wrong, but far more complex, such as choices between love and power. Love does not mean surrendering to fear, nor does power always represent strength of force. So in these examples, we outline for you how actions that perhaps begin from a stance of seeming justifiable reaction can lead to undermining your vibratory pattern when indignation leads to negativity. Relationships will come and go in your sojourns, and the complexities and intricacies are challenging. There are so many lessons that are afforded when duality relationships end. In relationships that are ended by one and pursued by the other, there is often a sense of betrayal that results in an emotionally charged chasing of rejection that initially occurs. This, then, may convert to anger of seeming rejection and can spiral downward into attack and hatred. Often the drama of a relationship ending is the springboard of a vast renewal, although it may not feel so at the time of the emotional hurt and seeming trauma. Yet this is, in truth, a scope and lens into the self. The ending of a relationship need not turn into hatred. Unfortunate situations result when humans believe that any means is justified in the pursuit of vindication and proving themselves as being right at any cost. Masters, being right does not mean destroying another. Your civil divorce courts are sadly fraught with attorney-led litigants with preset determined strategies aimed at destroying the character of the other. Very few civil legal actions are processed in a civil manner. So hate-filled are the actions that in many situations, lives are disrupted and both sides are severely damaged, mutually repulsed because of the hatred generated. Regrettably, children are caught in the middle of parents that are polarized in mutual contempt. The children can be psychologically damaged in the crossfire of hatred, unsure of who to love, deeply traumatized by the negative experience. This must change. How much are you willing to sacrifice in pursuit of being right? The irony is that such pursuit is often very far from just. The mental field of thought. Masters, you must be ever aware that every action of a human springs from the mental field of thought, and could not have appeared without them. This applies equally to those acts called spontaneous and unpremeditated, as to those which are deliberately executed. Therefore, it is essential as you advance in wisdom to become the wise stewards and responsible guardians of your thoughts. You must be constantly aware of the contents of your conscious mind. The self-awareness of recognizing the nature of your mental contents is an essential aspect of becoming a fully conscious spiritual being. In a true sense, hate is the other side of love, the opposite end of the same spectrum in terms of the emotional aspect. In time, you will learn that all negative energy emitted comes back to the source of the projection. It is not a case of who was right and who was wrong, rather of what energy was projected. As long as you carry hurt, self-condemnation, jealousy, and hatred, these types of energies will shatter your auric field, taint your world, and poison your emotional stability. As long as you focus or dwell on negativity, you will absolutely draw to you more of the same. There are no exceptions. It is simply the law of attraction. Yet some of you become immersed in such destructive negativity for years and even lifetimes before you learn that it is the energy of destructive emotion, hate, fear, anger, and hurt that is the culprit. Free will. Every soul that chooses physical life enters the earth plane with an absolute knowing that every human possesses a beautifully unique, intimate sense of being that is succinctly itself, and that it is appropriate to discover fulfillment on both an individual basis first, and in so doing contribute by example to the fulfillment of the group. You are born seeking the actualization of the ideal of love in its great and wonderful complexities. We encourage each of you to add value to the quality of your life, to add your own talents, experiences, and abilities to enrich life in a path and method that only you can individually contribute to the cosmos. In so doing, you will attain a state of being that is truly and uniquely yours, while adding immensely to the value and fulfillment of the world as a whole. You see, the energy of a creative, positive soul brightens not only your earth, but the all that is, in a symphony of harmony through all spheres of reality. In this way, through your sojourns, you will learn how to be joyful, conscious beings. You will know through experience that positive desire for creativity and love over destruction and hatred is not only a quantum leap, but a requisite part of the graduation. It is achieved in free will. When this is truly learned, the cycle is near completion, and the worlds await you in mastery. The crystalline transition of the Earth is the base source of the planetary ascension. It offers greater light, more complex light, to humanity. Accordingly, a greater aspect of light is becoming available to humanity, and light removes shadow and offers a greater understanding. When you truly consider, truly learn the nuances of hatred, you will greater realize the potency of love. Discernment is key. Think not that we desire to forcefully impose or have you change your chosen stance on any of this sharing or the nature of your own being. Your beliefs, values, and chosen opinions are sacred steps of your free will and growth. And choice is requisite in graduating the University of Earth in duality. Your free will is endorsed and credited by the All That Is, of which you are a divine aspect in higher self. The mode and manner, the expediency and format of your evolution is your own creation, and that is by individual design. There can be no other way to complete the University of Earth. It is not the role of the angelic, nor the ascended masters' councils to make choices for you. We are holders of information that you may utilize, refashion, reject, or accept. It is your choice, and we tell you that each of you will graduate in time. Love is ever the key, and cause and effect are great and greater teachers that all of you will learn from. Experiencing duality and learning mastery en route is why you entered the course. By pursuing mastery, each of you will discover how to become the wise guardian of thought, and thus the conscious director of your life. You will become aware within self of the functional laws of thought, and understand how the thought-to-mind factions operate symbiotically in the shaping of not only your character, but also the attraction and manifestation of your life circumstances. A noble, evolved soul will not react in the same manner to a conflict as will one who is lesser developed. Closing. Masters, a beautiful completion is occurring on the earth. It is a sacred event that all of you have co-created. It is time that you illuminate to the great and greater aspect that has always been within you. The dreamer is awakening. The expansion of light is the expansion of truth, of understanding, and is the doorway to the return home. Like the angels, you are beings of light. As yet, most of you have no idea how important you are, and how the evolution that you have created in yourselves has expanded the cosmos. Before we complete, we ask you to do something very special. Take a moment and direct your energy to feel the energy of light, of angels. Now, feel us. Be absorbed in this angelic countenance of peace and well-being. It is a moment of solace, is it not? It is the energy of source, of home, of light, of love. It is angelic, and you, dear ones, are feeling the frequency of our nature, of your source nature in angelic beingness of sacred light. It is nice, isn't it? Every enlightened being who has walked the earth in final mastery exuded an energy that feels a lot like what you just felt. People were attracted to them, loved them. All life responded, blossomed in their presence. They created joy effortlessly, because that is the energy of light. And dear ones, you are human angels, and can and will evolve in kind as you return home. And in that sacred path of love, we of the angelic realm honor you. We await you, and promise to leave the lights on for your serendipitous return. I am Metatron, and I share with you these truths. You are beloved, and we honor you, each of you. And so it is.